Hi, welcome back to Shadow Phoenix, and today we're going to talk about taking your power back from fear. So, I have some notes I'm going to be reading from, and I think that it's really unfortunate in our culture that our vocabulary doesn't support the understanding that there's something that is true fear and then there's a false sense of fear. So the false sense of fear, I'm going to call like a fearful mindset because it's largely in our mind. And true fear is something that our intuition communicates with us about to keep us safe in the present moment. So if I'm sorry that I have the shaky computer again, this is my makeshift video studio here. The the true sense of fear is more of a warning communication. It's a warning and it's going to tell you to do something. And that is a true sense of fear. So for our purposes today, like I think some really great examples are like love and like. We can differentiate different degrees of fondness for somebody by saying I like them or I love them, or something like irritation and rage. We have the ability to kind of fine tune our vocabulary, but when it comes to fear, we just use the word fear for everything, whether it's false fear or real fear that's functional for us, and that can make it difficult. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about real fear versus false fear, and we're going to talk about um, what it is and define it, and how you can know if you are really in a true state of warning or if you're in a fearful mindset. We're going to talk about why it happens and then dealing with other people, because being social, we pick up a lot of our fear-based messages from other people, or we are presented with things that can cause us to be fearful from other people. And then we have to know how we're going to decide to handle that. And then also, we're going to talk about closing up just really great proactive things that we can do to take back our power, to build a powerful mindset where we are able to encounter fear in a healthy way and not get locked in a fearful mindset. um, Sorry, I usually ramble and I'm not used to reading from notes, so excuse me if I'm a little bit weird. So, one of the things that I have found in my personal experience and also working with other people is that a fearful mindset, a false fear, is going to rob us of our personal power. Um, it's highly uncomfortable. Nobody enjoys being in a fear state. And it also really handicaps us from being able to take full action in our lives and to be productive and to live from our true center. And so having a fearful mindset is really counterproductive to us being the happiest, healthiest person that we can be and enjoying that process. I think that most people are going to be able to identify for themselves immediately. Sorry, my computer's being weird. There you go. I'm back. I think that most people are going to be able to identify for themselves immediately what a fearful mindset looks like to them. You hear it in your mind, you hear it in your self talk, you can feel it in your body, you can observe yourself having reduced capacity when you're interacting with the world in the way that you want to. You're not able to fully do that. Um, so a fearful mindset, that's more of like living in a state of fear. It tends to be a narrative in your mind. It tends to be self-talk. It tends to show up that way. What true fear is, a warning communication from your instincts, is to keep you safe. So let's talk about an acute situation. Let's say that you are going through your day and there's a predator. Okay, so this could be like caveman days. There's a wild animal out who's going to get me. I need to utilize that fear. There's a healthy warning system, and I need to utilize that to escape this animal. Maybe in modern day, we may feel like that's a bad guy, that there's a person out there who's going to attack us or get us. We're going to have that warning sense that's going to communicate from us, and we're going to be able to escape and get away. Um, so it's the sense of fear in a healthy way, that warning communication is designed to keep us safe in the moment. The problem happens when our fear is on overdrive and it tries to keep us safe, not just from things that are truly threats, because there are things that are truly threats in our lives, but it tries to keep us safe from any kind of change. So if you feel like you've experienced sabotage, self-sabotage, like against success, or if there's positive changes that you want to make in your life and you just feel like you're having a hard time getting traction and making those things happen, that could be your sense of fear trying to keep homeostasis, trying to keep balance. And your fear sense does not differentiate change that's good and change that's bad. It just wants to keep everything balanced and very stable and very static. And it's easy to get gridlocked or calcified and really like locked in to things that aren't good for you because your fear is just so afraid of any kind of change at all that it's just trying to keep you still, trying to like immobilize you because it can identify right now I'm safe. It feels safest how things are. It just wants that status quo. So it is helpful to understand how fear, a healthy sense of fear in the psyche works, and then where it starts to go off the rails, especially for modern day humans who don't have a lot of in the moment, fearful, like true things that are threats. So like a really great example is public speaking. Many people have a horrible fear of public speaking. They would never want to do it. It's very terrifying for them. Their adrenaline would become aroused. They would be going into a fear state. Some people have like a true phobia around it. But what is happening in that moment is they're simply in a room, maybe behind a microphone in front of other people, probably seated, and it's probably in actuality a very safe scenario, but the fear sense has become falsely activated, and this person's gone into a fear mindset where there's not a true danger. So when we're looking at fear, it's important to say that there are situations where you are truly in a dangerous situation that you have to deal with, and then sometimes your fear will be activated in a situation that you are not in actual danger. You're not in actual danger. And there's a spectrum with a lot of gray in the middle on that. But this is going to help you navigate through that so that you can find out for yourself and take back your power from that false fear and move through it when it's not something that in actuality is harmful for you. And if something is in actuality harmful for you, your natural instincts, your natural awareness and knowing and wisdom is going to guide you in that moment. And then hopefully this will help empower you to connect with that voice, that communication warning, to exit the dangerous situation in an effective manner. So how do we know what fear is? Let's talk about the two kinds of fear. You have the fearful mindset, which is false fear. You have true fear, which is like a warning communication from your own instinct. And a fearful mindset is going to immobilize you. The first thing that you're going to notice is that it's going to get you to stop. It's going to try to get you to not take action. So immobilization is the first thing. I have a list of 5 for each of these. So the first on the fearful mindset is that you'll know that you're in a fearful mindset and it's false fear if it's trying to get you to stop doing something, to keep you from doing something. Okay. Number 2, it's going to appear to take away options. Options is the key word on that. If you're in a false place of fear, you're going to feel like you don't have options, but there's only one choice. There's really only one thing I can do right now. I don't have any other options. It's feeling entrapped, but it's false. But you're going to feel as if you don't have any options to do anything else other than just whatever is presenting itself to you in that moment. Number 3 is confusion. You're going to feel confusion as you try to resolve your fearful mind state in your own mind. On some level, you're going to be able to recognize that this fear state, this false fear is speaking to you and it's not really real. And you're going to go into your mind and try to resolve that and like argue with it. You're going to do like a pros and a cons. You're going to talk yourself into it and talk yourself out of it. And then the fear will pop up again, like just as you're about to get a breakthrough. And there's going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of fog, a lot of inability to decide on a course of action. You'll maybe want to take a course of action, but feel confused because, but what if? So confusion is going to be the third thing that you notice, or you could notice, if you're in a false state of fear. Number 4 is that the future is the key word here. You're going to find yourself probably transporting to a future time. This is where people that have maybe anxiety or possibly panic attacks may really resonate, where you leave the here and now and you go to a future point in time, and this fearful narrative is playing out in the future. And that loss of options, that loss of clarity is going to appear now. Nothing's going wrong, but it's just that you're going to feel can also impact the past possibly, but mostly you're going to be future tripping, stealing troubles from tomorrow. And number 5, it's a loop. There's no clear endpoint. There's no clear resolution. No matter how many times you replay your scenarios in your head to talk yourself out of it or talk yourself into it, it's never going to resolve. It's just on a loop. That's part of the false fear keeping you immobilized and trying to rationalize out of the fear state, because it kind of keeps you in your mind, and so it's going to be a loop. All right, so let's talk about true fear. And again, this is something where you have an event that's here, and most of this is going to happen very rapidly and very fast. And when I go through these, I think you will be able to identify times when you have had true fear and you were working in harmony with yourself. Your instincts were speaking to you. You took action. Your emotions, your clarity, your body, everything lined up to resolve this issue. And this could be, anyways, I won't give examples. Let's just go on with it. Warning communications of true fear, number 1, are going to bring you clarity. You will clearly know what the threat is. You will clearly know what the problem is. You will clearly be able to define what's the problem. What is the threat? What is being warned to you? What is the problem? What could be going wrong? Okay. Number 2, you are going to have action. There's going to be into your mind an outcome or storyline or course of action. You're going to be presented with what to do, and you're going to have perfect clarity on that. It's going to be jerk the steering wheel the other way, or go into the store, or make a phone call, or take your hand off the hot stove. You will clearly have a very distinct, specific, single course of action, or very clear, specific sequence of actions about what to do to resolve your fear, your true fear warning communication. It's going to be probably instinctive. The first couple of things are going to happen so quick in time that they're going to appear that they're all smushed up together. But they're very distinct differences between false fear and real fear. That's part of how you know that it's false fear, is that it takes time to play out this loop that you're in. If you're in a really dangerous situation in that moment, your instincts are going to kick in and direct you what to do very rapidly, like neurons firing rapidly. Number 3, you're going to have a sense of peace and or serenity. So what I'm thinking of here is if you are sliding down the ice in your car, or there is, some people have been through like explosions or being held in difficult situations, you don't feel afraid when you're actually in the danger. What you feel is this stillness, and again, this clarity and this awareness. And a lot of people will say that time slows down. They somehow have time to do these things like duck or grab or, again, jerk the steering wheel. And they don't feel afraid in the moment when they are in danger. They feel that sense of clarity coming to them. They know what they need to do, and then their body goes into that response to save them and take the action needed to keep them safe, to help them remain safe. So it doesn't mean that you feel happy per se, but you have a sense of stillness there. There's not the confusion or even the conflict. It's a very clear moment where you're just in your own body, in the present moment, and that brings a sense of peace or serenity, of clarity, stillness, where you're able to then take action. The 4th one is that it's in the present. What's happening is happening now. So going back to the public speaking example, if I'm afraid of public speaking, hold on, excuse me. Couple more minutes, please. If I'm public speaking and I'm afraid, what I'm going to envision is that I'm going to speak, and then after that, people will condemn me or reject me, and then people will ridicule me, and then I'll be a failure. So there's a sequence of events that are playing out in time. When you're in a true sense of fear, there's the present moment, which is I'm immediately in danger from this threat. It's here in the present moment. It's not going to take 10 or 15 minutes for something to happen. Right now, I need to do this. It's tied to and linked. It's anchored in the present moment, true fear. And then lastly, the event is going to resolve or have a conclusion versus being in this loop of the false fear. When you're in true fear, you have an actual threat right here in the present moment. That event is going to play out and then it's going to be concluded. Maybe successful, maybe not, who knows? But at some point, that event, because it's in the present moment, that event is going to come to pass, and then you're going to move through it and then out of it. And then you'll be able to say, this happened, and I either was effectively able to protect myself or not, but it's going to be concluding. And if you're in that loop, it's false fear. If it's an event that has a conclusion or resolution or passes, that event was the dangerous event, because the truth is that we live in well-being. We live in a safe universe. We are secure and protected. We are loved. We are held, and that is the truth. And so if you have an event that interrupts that, you should be moving past that. If you're in a continual loop of upset and insecurity and fear, that doesn't reflect reality. Okay, so let's talk about why. I think that's kind of interesting. It doesn't really matter why, but a lot of people like to have a storyline about why this happens and sometimes can help them resolve or whatever. We like to ask why in our culture. There's an underlying belief of scarcity, and that is why I feel like we have so much fear. It's very cultural for a lot of people. It's also part of the human race, human nature. Some cultures really thrive on fear much more than others. Some are much more connected to their essential well-being than others. But it is also tied biologically to us because, again, we have a survival instinct, and that's healthy and that's good, and we shouldn't want to tinker with that. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But sometimes in our mind, if we allow things to get out of control, it can really just grow legs. It can get out of control. And that scarcity belief is a big part of that. There's a fear that there's not enough well-being in the world to go around. This sense of limitation, or that there's a finite grouping of resources, and that we're all going to have to fight over them and divide them up and make sure it's fair, and that who should have what they should have and all of this stuff. And so this fear of missing out or the fear of not getting your needs met can really, because of that scarcity belief, can really trick people and trigger them into a false sense of fearful mindset. Also, I think that there's a certain irrational, strange belief we have that somebody has to be afraid of it, that somebody has to worry enough about it to alleviate the actual threat. So let's talk about maybe the market crashing, something that's happening on a systemic level that could affect you. It could not. It could affect other people. It could affect society. There's this sense, again, it's very irrational that the worry that we put into something is going to help prevent something bad from happening. And so maybe if I worry about the stock market, and if I worry about how my stocks are doing, or if I worry about my family stocks, or if I worry about this certain industry, that worry is going to help keep everything stable. Very irrational. When you say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but emotionally we tend to feel like we need to pay worry, we need to pay fear into the system to help bad things not happen. If I didn't worry about this, it could happen. Again, it sounds crazy when you say it out loud and you hear it, but a lot of us emotionally are really tied to this idea that I need to worry about my kids, or I need to worry about my finances, I need to have this ongoing sense of fear to keep bad things from happening. And that's not at all true. And in fact, when you do those things, it actually makes bad things happen to you more often rather than less often. And we know that when you have these negative outcomes and you rehearse worry and you rehearse negative outcomes in your mind, that you're not only more prone to see them because of the way that your mind works psychologically, but you're also training your body to welcome and identify and integrate with those negative outcomes. So in some really real ways, you are creating those bad things for you. And part of what I would love to see is that we can give ourselves permission to give up the addiction to fear, addiction to worry, addiction to anxiety. Um, and we can begin to move more powerfully, owning our power into the future and into the present moment without that sense of fear hanging over us, and let it take the rightful place it has, which is to warn us of imminent threat and danger that we can react and respond to and address, and then go on in a happy, healthy way with our heart open into, again, the present moment or the future. And then lastly, again, this is kind of a weird one. I feel like we have some sense of obligation and fidelity to our creation or to our ego. So if you're somebody who has really made a lifestyle, you have really created an ego structure for yourself where, oh, I'm just a worrier, or I'm negative, or I complain, or I live in fear, I have anxiety, I have panic attacks. Like, this has become something that you really have cultivated an identity out of, and you have an ego structure that is very, very tied to anxiety, fear, worry, obsession. That can be hard for you to disown. It feels like disowning you. Part of what I like to do is integrate those things back in and take ownership of them and then transform them, because we don't ever need to disown who we are or disown a process that we've been through, because most people, if you have fear or you have anxiety or panic attacks, something has legitimately happened to you and you have done the best you can to be able to integrate that into your waking daily life the best you can. It just happens to be not serving you as well as you thought, or maybe you've grown to a point where you are ready to let go some of those negative coping mechanisms, but you don't quite know how to facilitate that. And so that's a part of what I like to do and part of what this channel is about. But it can be an ego structure that can be part of the why, is that this is an ego structure. This is my identity now. And it's really hard for me to set that identity aside, because if I didn't have this, I don't know who else I would be if I wasn't fearing and worrying and anxiety ridden. Also, just having fidelity to our creation. In an energetic sense, like if we create something, we feel like we need to be committed to that. We haven't really learned in our culture how to have cycles and release things, and how to have things grow and integrate them properly into our life story or into our identity in a functional way. And so it feels wrong to let go of something that, again, if you have had some sort of a trauma, is very deeply personal and meaningful to you. Even if you don't care for the meaning, even if you don't care for what happened and how it affected you, that is still part of your story. You have the right to have ownership over that. But sometimes we don't know how to lay aside those other parts and just let those go and release those. So sometimes it's a feeling of, I need to stay faithful to this, because then what else? Like I'm disowning my own creation, and that feels like a betrayal of yourself. It's not. But it can feel that way. Maybe I'll do another video on that, about letting things go. So sometimes that can be the why, about why we have this false fear that's really active for us. So let's change it from the personal to group and society and culture. In fear and society, you are going to encounter bids from other people that are going to invite you to a fear response. You are going to be possibly bombarded with invitations to be in anxiousness, to be in fear, to be in panic, to be obsessive. And sometimes those are, again, valid. Sometimes they are not. Others who, when you get communication from others, it can help you to be able to determine what it is they're asking you for. You can always have a response that's incongruent with what's actually occurring. So just because somebody's putting something out there doesn't mean you need to match it. And that's part about taking back your power, so that you're setting the tone for you rather than just reactive and being responsive to other people, and you're always meeting them at their level. This gives you the ability to detach and then come at life in a way that works for you. So one of the ways you can do that is to be able to become more aware of what is actually happening from another person when they're communicating with you. So a person who's actually asking for help is going to be able to ask you for an actual action. They're going to be asking you, they're going to have a very clear sense in their mind about what needs to happen for them. They will ask you, can you do this for me? I need this. Can you help me? And they'll be able to give you something very specific. People who are caught up in their own fear state, and we all see it, and other people are, and it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's something that we all go through. But when somebody else is in their own fear state, they're going to be dissatisfied until you join them in that fear state. And there's going to be some hysteria with that. They're wanting to spread a fear state, and they're going to be dissatisfied until you also are now a carrier for this fear, this panic, this anxiety, this obsession, the hand wringing. They just want to spread their mindset and their energy. And that's really all it is. If you ask them or direct them back to something specific, they won't be able to tell you. It'll go on to name calling, or they're going to be, forecasting like failure and loss and catastrophe. There's going to be a lot of catastrophizing. And so at that point, then you now know what you're dealing with, which is something that you're not willing to engage in. I'm not willing to meet you in your fear state, friend. So I'm just going to let you have your space to have your own experience there. I'm going to have my own experience here, and I'm going to make an informed decision about how I now interact. So part of that, again, to reiterate, is that personal sense of empowerment for you, because that's what my mission is. It's for us all to come from life in a personally empowered way. So when you have that personal sense of empowerment, you can choose how to respond, and you don't get sucked in to these people's bids for fear, anxiety, panic, even on a low level. It can be very insidious and tricky and hard to spot sometimes. But as you continue to take personal power and own your own energy, own your own narrative, you're going to find that you're getting better at determining when people are trying to make you fearful. So again, some ways that you can respond to that is ask the person, how can I help you? You will be able to tell in their response what their goal is. If they say, I need you to loan me $50, I need you to watch my kids, I need you to go get gas in the car, they will have a specific task that they need help with, and then you can determine for yourself, I can or I can't help you with that. Another thing you can do is you can offer to them what you are willing to do. So if somebody, let's say somebody is truly in a fear state and they say, you can say, well, what I'm willing to do is XYZ. And that keeps you in control of your own energy, in control of your own activity, in control of your own emotions, because now you're determining and you're letting people know what you're willing to do. The other thing that you can do, lastly, is ask them, what are you planning on doing about that? Again, really great for a person in a fear state, because it puts the question back on them so that they have to not only own their energy, but they have to own the action that they want to take moving forward. And they may not be able to tell you something productive or proactive. They may be in such a fear state that they may just go like on, phase 2 of a tirade. But if they're somebody who maybe is accidentally in a fear state, that question will snap them out and go, oh, what am I going to do about it? And it gives them the chance to take some distance from their own loop and their narrative, and then to stop and think about what kind of action they want to make proactively in their life. You're also creating some really great distance between you and the other person to let them know, I'm not going to join you in this fear state. Also, if somebody is in an actual need, it's a really great thing to be able to say, I see that you have need. It sounds really valid. I'm very concerned for you and I care about you. Unfortunately, I can't do anything to help you right now in this moment with that. But I will ask you, what are you planning to do about that? Is there a support that I can provide for you based on what you do have planned? So if you have a hard time with codependency, these are some great questions for you to use with people who are in fear. A lot of other scenarios and dynamics that would be really helpful for you to start using that question. What are you planning about doing with that? All right, and moving on to the last part, really having a personal empowerment stance on dealing with fear, dealing on all of this stuff. We're going to want to stop the spread. especially if you get on social media, the news is the worst about spreading fear, spreading panic. Why? Because it's emotive and it sells and it gets ratings up and people get hooked in and people want to forecast the future and it gives us some sense of control. Like there's all of these reasons why we really get hooked into this fear spreading, the fear mongering. But the energy that we can take is productive, proactive action. So, and to do that, you have to be in tune with yourself. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you want, the kind of life you want to create, and who you're willing to be, who you are and who you aren't. You have to be able to know that and then live from that place. So, the energy is that you're going to be taking proactive action. Best defense is a good offense. So some things that I've noticed that we can do is you can separate action from the fear state. So let's say that you happen to be in the middle of a health crisis in your country. You can take smart, proactive action to keep yourself safe without falling into a fear narrative about that. For some reason, again, odd, I don't know why there's a chicken or an egg thing here, but it seems like in order to take action, we have to have this fear narrative that we get caught up in mentally, this like mental loop about, oh, the hand wringing and the catastrophe. You can do a bunch of things that support health from a really solid place of healthy energy, proactive energy, self-love, self-care, care for your family, care for your community without bringing a fear narrative into that. Okay, so we can separate emotion from action again, and that's personally empowering for the individual to be able to say, I'm going to choose to take this action because it supports something that I want. I'm not going to take action because I'm gonna not take action out of fear because I have this fear narrative going and I'm responding to that instead of something proactive. Anytime we're responding to the fear loop, it's going to be very non-functional place for us to be emotionally, as far as outcomes and getting actual things, done in your day. It's not going to be a strong place. Again, be proactive. Know who you are. Know what you want. And this is great because, again, this is very personally empowering. If you don't know those things, that's something you have control over. You can get in touch with yourself. You can learn new skills. You can visualize and set goals for yourself. And if you are not where you want to be, think about where you do want to be and go get it. Have fun. Having fun, laughter, humor, relaxing, playing games with kids, playing games with others, enjoyment. You can't be in a fear state if you are having fun and relaxed. Again, a whole nother discourse on, panic states like your parasympathetic nervous system and all this stuff. But basically, there's rest and relaxation, and then there's like a fear state. And so if you can go into rest and relaxation state, and with your parasympathetic nervous system, let yourself be at ease, let your heart rate go slower, you take slower, deeper breaths, you're relaxed, your body posture is relaxed, your adrenaline's down, your cortisol's down. All of those things are going to help you not be in a fear state. And more importantly, notice when you do go into one, which will either be a true dangerous situation that you can then resolve, or you're going to notice, oh, this is a fear loop and I need to get out of this. I also want to say too, I'm going to add this in as a bonus. When you see that you have an actual dangerous situation and you confront it and you overcome it and you live through it and you grow through it, that's personally empowering because that is building your ability, your own belief in your ability to care for yourself. And that's really important, especially if you've had trauma or if you just haven't had the opportunity to confront challenges in your life and it's something that has caused you to be more fearful. Being able to truly confront and understand, I had a threatening situation and I overcame it and I resolved it. That knowledge that you are a strong, capable person is going to help you have a solid healthy self-esteem, love for yourself, and investment in yourself. What you care for and what you invest in grows. You appreciate. So when you love and you nurture yourself, you take care of yourself, you grow that self-love and appreciation for yourself. And we all can benefit from a really healthy sense of self-love and self-esteem. Use the power of your words. Notice your vocabulary. It's a very different thing to say, oh my gosh, I have to stay home because I'm so afraid to get sick and go out in public. that sounds really different from, hey, I'm going to stay at home, I'm going to rest, I'm going to enjoy time with my family, I'm going to safeguard my health, we're going to eat really healthy things, we're going to spend time enjoying one another. Same effect, like we're going to stay home, we're going to stay safe, we're going to stay healthy, but the vocabulary and the emotional tone that not only that you state, but then like once it comes out of your mouth, you're now hearing it, really is going to disrupt any active fear loops you have and put you into that fun, rest, and relaxation state of taking the same outcome, having the same outcome occur, but you're going to have a better emotional, more fun, comfortable, relaxed time while you do that. Don't feel bad if you slip back into the fear state. It is a real addiction in our culture. For most people, we have a serious, real addiction to fear, to panic, to anxiety, to worry. This is not a small thing. It is very real. It is chemically a fact in your brain that if this is something that has gone unchecked and it's a habit, it's social, it's emotional, it's chemical, don't feel bad if you fall back into it. All you want to do is just try again, notice when you have it, and really this is where progress, not perfection, comes in, because as long as you can make progress about identifying when you're in the fear state, getting out of it sooner, falling into it less often, all you have to do is just create more space around it. It's not a yes or no, like the light switch on, the light switch off. Oh, I'm never in the fear state. Everybody's going to go in the fear state. That's a reality. The other reality is if you can work on just improving those times, improving that process, and getting some growth, that's really, it's the trajectory, it's the trend that is going to be really important. So if you fall into a fear state 100 times today and then next week you're doing it only 90 times, that's growth, that's progress, and that energy that is now freed up is going to be so much more productive for you. So again, this is a journey. This is not a destination. Do not feel bad if you fall into it. Don't shame yourself. Don't judge yourself. Don't think that you've done something wrong. It's a natural part of humaning, being in the world, having experiences. We are going to have fear. We just, as much as we want to cultivate having a healthy relationship with healthy fear and lessen and distance ourselves from unhealthy relationships with false fear. So yeah, that's about it. So to wrap it up, be able to identify when you're having real fear versus false fear. Understand that it's going to want to keep you safe and therefore mobilized. Understand that other people can impact your ability to have fear, and you can also impact their ability to get out of a fear state. And know for yourself when you're in it, and then when you know you're in it, you just take action to get out of it. That's the real I guess I didn't talk very much about that, but again, that be proactive, know who you are, know where you're going, and as you continue this journey of taking back your power, your own personal power from false fear, you are going to learn tips and tricks that work for you. Get out there, get educated, read, talk with people, and see what works for other people. There's a lot of tools out there. So get out there and find what works for you and experiment. And that's the most important thing, is to be growing into being able to be a peaceful, serene person that has power from fear so that you can live the life you want to live. Okay, so hope that was helpful for you guys. And get out there, go grab that personal power, take back your power from fear.